They're back! For the first time ever, it's a Super Bowl rematch the very next year. The Dallas Cowboys are looking to walk with the football gods and become only the 5th franchise to repeat as champions. The Buffalo Bills have made it for an unprecedented 4th straight trip. But if the result is the same, what a long, strange trip it would be. Troy Aikman's command of the Dallas ship is becoming legendary. So are Emmitt Smith's mercurial feet. But Thurman Thomas will attempt to run from 2 sobering Super Bowl memories and beat the back in front, while Jim Kelly tries to join the rare quarterback club of ring bearers. If speed kills, then the Cowboys are lethal, looking for a repeat of last January's massacre. If experience is the tonic, then the Bills are determined to sip victory champagne. A champion looking to toss aside its pursuer again, and a challenger looking to spring the big upset. Which teams have enough to go the full distance? America's team or America's underdog? And so are we on our special 90-minute Super Bowl edition of ESPN's NFL Game Day. It's a somewhat rainy day and probably be a rainy night in Georgia. But it's not raining all over the world. You're looking at the Georgia Dome, where it will be dry and loud as Super Bowl 28 kicks off just a bit more than 6 hours from right now. Inside the media headquarters here at the Hyatt Regency in downtown Atlanta, you can look around and easily answer that time-honored question. Are you ready for some football? The resounding answer is yes, and so are we. Well, I guess they heard me ask it. They gave us the answer. Hello, everybody. Once again, I'm Chris Berman, and to quote those noted Southern poets, Leonard Skinner, we're aiming to play it pretty for Atlanta here on our 90-minute Super Bowl edition of NFL Game Day. We'd like to introduce the rest of the members of the band. On guitar, Screaming Tom Jackson. Jumping Joe Theismann is on the bass. Crashing Chris Mortensen is on the drums. Gene Kruger, you're not. A couple of opening riffs here, gentlemen. You know, 2 great storylines here at Super Bowl 28. Does Dallas walk with the NFL gods, joining only the Packers, Dolphins, Steelers, and 49ers as back-to-back Super Bowl winners? Or do the overdue Bills finally cash in and in one fell swoop, stop the whole image, change everything around, and forge a new one, the gang that wouldn't quit? Tommy, opening thoughts on the day.
Well, I think that it's the night before when the excitement begins for this game. That's when you get the adrenaline flow going. That's when you start thinking about tomorrow I can be a world champion. I know I'm not going to play the game today, but I didn't sleep very well last night.
Well, Tommy, I got to be honest with you. I'm not going to play the game today either, and being an NFC guy, having won 9 in a row, I slept very comfortably, I have to be honest with you. But I do believe that this is a week, and this is a night, that the Dallas Cowboys were a little bit uneasy because they have to wonder, is fate going to smile on those Buffalo Bills at our expense, Mort?
Well, Joe, you should know this better than anybody. The NFC East champion, in this case the Cowboys, is shooting for its 4th straight Super Bowl title, all against the Buffalo Bills. But think about this. The Bills have swept all 4 NFC East opponents they played this year, including the Cowboys and Giants, and they've only allowed 41 points in doing so. So the Cowboys, hey, they're not overconfident for this game. They're confident. They have a lot of respect for the Buffalo Bills, though, Chris.
Hey, our researchers tell us that each of the players got extra mints on their pillow. They all slept very nicely last night. Well, as President Ronald Reagan once said, well, here we go again. The Cowboys and the Bills, same bat time, same bat channel. They're both 12-4 this season, 14-4 overall. Both won their championship games by 17 points. Both have registered 6 sacks in the postseason wins. Both are #1 seeds in their respective conferences. But the similarities end there. Dallas, in their record 7th Super Bowl appearance, is 3-3. And the big one, Buffalo, in their 4th appearance, is, well, you know. As for Dallas's top guns today, quarterback Troy Aikman, you may remember, did not finish the NFC title game against the 49ers. But his concussion is not a factor anymore. Neither are his shoulder, rib, or back pains. He's had a sharp week in practice. This really hasn't been an issue all week long. As for Emmitt Smith, his slightly separated shoulder may cause him pain if he's hit just right or wrong, depending on what side you're looking at it from. But he says he feels better than he has in a month, as the 49ers found out the hard way last week. Championship game. Now, both guys can expect the Bills to check that injury report with some hard hits. Basically, Troy and Emmitt know it's not a day for flag football. But in some ways, maybe it is. There's controversy here over the flying of the Georgia State flag, which includes the old Confederate battle flag, offensive to some. For the latest on that issue and our first check with the Georgia Dome, both inside and outside, let's move on. Let's crash right through the roof and join our Andrea Kramer. Andrea?
Thank you very much, Chris. Dallas defensive end Charles Haley did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. Now, Jimmy Johnson has a no practice, no play rule, which he's going to waive because Charles was out there Friday and he was feeling better. But defensive coordinator Butch Davis told us it depends on how Charles feels when he wakes up this morning. As for the Bills, I was talking to a couple of their linemen, and they like this turf here at the Dome. It's soft and a lot of cushion, but it's what they call sticky. So some of the guys are going to be out there wearing more basketball-style shoes. This was a week when players were pretty good off the field. Some other news dominated the headlines. The Georgia State flag has created quite a controversy amongst a number of people. It is flying outside the Dome at both ends of the stadium. There is a protest planned by writers who will walk out of the press box when the national anthem is played. Other people will wear black as a show of support. Now, the NFL is doing nothing. I ran into the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who told us, why is that the case? The NFL has supported the Martin Luther King holiday. They've supported inner-city programs. Why stop now? A little bit later in the show, I'll be back with a look at playing with pain. Right now, let's head back to you, Chris.
All right, Andrea, thank you very much. We'll check back with you. Tommy, your read on the situation here, the flag situation.
Well, I think certainly the commissioner and all the parties involved deserve a lot of credit for trying to avoid a very embarrassing situation or potentially embarrassing situation at the stadium today. I think as long as the NFL carries the political clout that it does, these kinds of situations are going to arise, but I think the commissioner has handled it as well as could be expected.
Yeah, taking advice from the mayor and Reverend Jesse Jackson and everything, and let's hope that, you know, that they play the football game and the right thing is done. We still have 6 hours to do something about that. This is the 8th time the teams who met in the regular season gather again in the Super Bowl. Buffalo beat an Emmitt-less Dallas back in Week 2 in Big D 13-10. So if you're wondering, regular season winners when they play the team again, 4-3 in Super Bowl rematches, a slight lean to the Bills. But last January at the Rose Bowl in Super Bowl 27, there was no slight lean about it. 52-17 Cowboys in a game that saw the Bills make more turnovers than Betty Crocker. In case you had forgotten, here we go. First half. James Washington's pick in the first quarter gets Dallas in business after they trailed 7-0. Then Charles Haley makes the stick. Jimmy Jones, the handyman, is there for the touchdown, the fumble in the air. Thomas Everett on the 4th down play stymied a Bills drive. Then, after an Aikman to Irvin touchdown, Thermal Thomas stripped of the ball inside the 2-minute warning, led to another touchdown. And if the Bills tried to come back in the final seconds of the first half, Larry Brown. 5 first-half turnovers by the Buffalo Bills of Marv Levy. Second half, it got better. Yeah, by 1. James Everett with Thomas Everett with the pick, and he tried to go all the way. Then Frank Reich at the fumble, and look what happens. Ken Norton, a left to the face and a right to the jaw, and he was gone for a touchdown. Number 78, Leon Lett, causes a fumble right here by Steve Tasker. And then, when Jeff Coat makes the sack, you remember this play. Leon Lett and Don BB. There will be an answer. That one didn't result in the touch. 9 turnovers. Now, when they played this year in Big D, Dallas made 4 turnovers, including late, down 13-10. Matt Darby, the dinosaur, with the pick. Troy Aikman and the Cowboys were stymied. And Jerry and company, well, I could only wonder. Well, later on, of course, Emmitt Smith got back into the lineup.
And actually, Tommy, here, let's start.
Turnover.
Would you like a turnover?
It's a turnover.
There were more turnovers there. Our chef has made some of these. Now, how is Buffalo going to avoid... Here, bite into one during the break, by the way. How is someone going to avoid making his... They're not going to make 9, okay? But they will have to eat. How can Buffalo avoid a relapse of last year?
Well, I think as it did last year in Super Bowl 27, it begins with Jim Kelly and his ability to control the offensive tempo. There is a major difference between the way he plays when he has pressure and when he doesn't. There you see the pressure at the goal line from Charles Haley, lined up on the left side defensively, knocks the ball into the air. Jimmy Jones gets it, takes it in. Then out in the middle of the football field again, Kelly feeling the pressure there, has to move out of the pocket, takes the sack right there. That's how he ended up leaving the game. Looking back to the AFC Championship game, you see the good one-on-one protection by his offensive line. He has the extra time to scan the football field, make a read, and deliver. Here against the Raiders, again, the extra second, the extra half second to throw the football. Jim Kelly needs time to throw. That takes us right back to his offensive line. And I think that if Kelly can control that ball, not make those major turnovers, Buffalo a chance to win.
Tommy, I think you really hit the key to one of the keys to the game. What happens in the Buffalo scheme of things is Jim Kelly is what we consider a long strider. His arm's not as strong as it used to be, so he can't just stand flat-footed and fire the ball around, say like a Dan Marino. Jimmy needs to step into the ball. Therefore, his offensive line needs to give him adequate protection so that he can step forward, keep the velocity on the ball, and get it in just before the Cowboy back close on the wide receivers, Mort.
Well, Joe, if you remember, things started breaking down for Kelly early in the second quarter when center Kent Hull injured his knee, and left tackle Will Wolford actually tore his rotator cuff and tried to play through it. In this game, there are 3 different Buffalo line offensive line starters than there were a year ago, so we have different matchups, and maybe that'll work better for Kelly this time, Chris.
Well, he has gone out of his way to praise his offensive line. He has a good relationship with him, but he knows exactly where his bread is buttered, or shall I say, his turnovers are baked. That's only part of the plan, and we'll have more on Jimbo a little bit later on in this edition of NFL Game Day. Jerry and Jimmy coming up. Is it paradise and the dashboard lights, or is it playing with pain, something every player must come to grips with, a gripping story? X's, O's, X, Y, Z's, you get the picture. But coming up next, Troy Aikman's years in the NFL, and he may be already leaving an indelible mark.
This is the first time that I've ever gone through an experience where I even remember going out on the field and playing in the game.
McDonald's. What you want is what you get at McDonald's today.
Welcome back to our 90-minute Super Bowl game day here in Atlanta. Just as Dallas is hoping to author a start to a possible walk with the football gods by winning back-to-back Super Bowls, Cowboys quarterback Troy Aikman is compiling his own legendary ledger sheet. 5 years in the league, and he could be at the helm for 2 Super Bowl titles. It took Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw 6 years to do that. Not only did Aikman's 69% accuracy lead the NFL this season, not only did he pass for 3,100 yards, but he can run, and he threw only 6 interceptions this year, an amazingly low number. And in the playoffs, 5-0 as a starter, 71% completions, 13 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. Joe, this just in, he's good.
He's real good, Chris. You're absolutely right. You know, it's unbelievable. Troy Aikman came into last year's Super Bowl, Super Bowl 27, as hot as any quarterback could be. Coming into Super Bowl 28, he's having a hard time remembering how he got here.
The shot you took last week in the San Francisco game, does it concern you a little bit about the head?
This is the first time that I've ever gone through an experience where I even remember going out on the field and playing in the game. And right now, it's not a concern of mine. I just don't want to have it happen again.
What are you guys going to have to do to beat the Bills?
I really think that the key for both teams is to establish the running game. I think that's the key for us. If we're going to have success offensively, I think that's going to be the key for Buffalo. And obviously, turnovers are always a key in a ball game, and you got to keep those to a minimum. But I really feel that if we're able to come out and get the running game going, then it's going to open up everything else for us, and we'll be fine.
Edna had to prove to Jerry that he was worth whatever he got. And it appeared from a public image that, hey, Troy, whatever you want, you got. How does that sit with you? I mean, you were very defensive of Emmett's situation and said, geez, you know, he's worth a lot.
Right, and yeah, I mean, I felt that, and I still feel this way, that he's the best back in football. Emmett his contract was up, so he was obviously forced to hold out throughout training camp to get what he felt he deserved. I negotiated my deal out over a period of about 2.5 months, and so it was not a picnic for me either. It was just that I was under contract, so no one got exposed to what it was I was dealing with.
What did you think when the number got around to $50 million? Can you say $50 million?
I still can't say it, no, but...
Try it. I want to hear you. I want to hear you say it. I want to hear you. Selective memory. Oh, $50 million.
Well, and
look at you getting red.
Well, only because I think what happens is, and I said this when I was on David Letterman, is that everybody just wants to talk about the $50 million, and they, all of a sudden they want to say that what I'm making is so dramatically more than what a Steve Young is making because he's at $25 million. Well, I signed a much longer. We could have made it $100 million, and I'd been playing until 2020 or something like that.
You wouldn't have minded.
Not if a lot of it was up front.
Jerry Jones has suggested that he could coach the Cowboys. What do you think about that?
I don't know. I suppose he could. He's the owner, so he can pretty much do what he wants. I've heard him say himself that he is a frustrated football coach, and that's why he bought the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm sure there was nothing that he would like more than to come into the box and make a few calls.
$50 million. See if you can try it. Just one. Go ahead, just one.
$50 million.
You did it.
He sure did, and he's worth every penny of it. Any quarterback will tell you that you cannot play well in this league unless you have a teacher, and a good teacher. Troy Aikman has had a great one in Norv Turner. I asked him about the imminent departure of Norv Turner, probably to be the head coach of the Washington Redskins, and he said, I'm not only losing a close friend, I'm losing somebody that's taught me an awful lot about the game and given me a system to function in. He's been a great teacher for me. Watch on this play how Troy sets up. He gets back 3 steps and just flat fires the ball. You want to see how close this is to a completion or an incompletion? Harper comes hard inside on Davis. Hanks, look at that, just barely by the hand. He didn't just hit him between the 8 and the 0. He hit the high right-hand corner of the 8. I want to tell you something, Tommy. That's being able to throw the football.
He certainly can, Joe, but I think the one thing that Norv Turner cannot teach Troy Aikman is how to take a lick. And as you watch those plays right there, timing was what was important. That's where the Buffalo defensive line comes into play. They have to get on top of Troy Aikman very quickly before he can set his feet. We're talking Bruce Smith, Darryl Talley, Cornelius Bennett. And Cornelius Bennett, the only real true blitzing linebacker for the Buffalo Bills, usually comes from the outside. Maybe he comes a little bit from the inside today, looping inside just to give the Dallas Cowboys a different look.
Well, Tommy, Cornelius has a tough offense to contend with today, and I really think it's time to recognize the Dallas Cowboys offense as one of the great in recent NFL history. Really, they have merged the best of the last 8 or 9 Super Bowl champions. Hey, they've got a hog-like Washington Redskins offensive line. They run between the tackles like the New York Giants, and they had the skill position players of the San Francisco 49ers. And the crown jewel in all this is Troy Aikman.
Well, as a witness to all that, Mort, as you well know, they got 8 offensive Pro Bowlers. They got one from every position: quarterback, running back, fullback, wide receiver, tight end, center, guard, tackle. Now we got Norv going to probably go somewhere else. Every year they're going to lose a coach to a head coach somewhere else. So 10 straight years, Jimmy's going to lose his entire staff.
That's right.
This is a heck of a group that they have put together, no doubt about that. Plenty to come. We are 90 minutes. We've got thermal. We've got the keys to the game. We've got to look back 25 years ago to a Super Bowl shocker when the Jets, J-E-T-S, Jets, upended the Colts. But up next, Aikman's counterpart, Jim Kelly, trying to make the Bills in the city of Buffalo champs, and with other thoughts on his mind as well.
Probably the best memory of the Chiefs win was the first game my mother was able to attend in over a couple months since her heart attack.
What did you say to her after?
I love you, Mom. We'll see if we can go get the Super Bowl for you, too.
Hi, I'm Tara Perez, and I'm a senior at Michigan City Rogers High School. As a member of the Rogers varsity track team, I know that I must stay focused throughout the season if I hope to reach my goals. As a teenager, I also know that I must stay focused to resist the temptation of drugs and alcohol. That is why I donate my time to the Michigan City DARE program. Today, more than ever, kids need to be aware of the effects of drugs and alcohol. Together, we can help keep kids off drugs.
If you can look at the odds and know they are against you, if you can acknowledge your fear and embrace it, if you can reach inside and stop the trembling, then, my son, the remote control is yours. ESPN Super Bowl week. Sports Centers from Atlanta. 27 Super Bowl. And Chris Berman is Chris Berman. ESPN will take you to the game.
We've been Chris Berman all week, haven't we? Hey, thanks to our friends at Coca-Cola for this nice look at the city of Atlanta as Super Bowl game day roars right on. While Troy Aikman has a chance to put himself on a lofty quarterback pedestal, Jim Kelly is already on one. Only he, Joe Montana, Terry Bradshaw, and Roger Staubach have started 4 Super Bowls. But there's the rub. Obviously, the others own the rings. Jim owns some bruising memories, like his first half departure last year when the Cowboys caved in on him. But with the toughness of an offensive lineman, Kelly leads the Bills' charge back into the arena, taking his shots on the field and from the outside, never succumbing until he gets it right.
Piss them off, go for 4.
Is that still like a rallying cry?
No, not as much, because we're here. And nobody wanted us here. That was more of what that meant. Because nobody wanted us at the Super Bowl. Now we're here, there's more people saying, we'd like to see you guys win. You guys deserve to win.
Regular season, 18 picks. It's not like you.
Did you see how many picks were tips?
A few, quite a few.
Yeah, a few. And you know, that's the only thing that bothers you to a certain point, because everybody automatically sees the 18 interceptions and they automatically say, wow, he forces the ball. And it ticks you off to a certain point, because I know how many passes that I forced that were intercepted, and I know how many balls were tipped, but I realized what type of season I had, and what the bottom line is, wins and losses.
And now in the playoff games, though, no tips, no picks.
Knock on wood. Probably the best memory of the Chiefs win was the first game my mother was able to attend in over a couple months since her heart attack.
What'd you say to her after?
I love you, Mom. We'll see if we can go get the Super Bowl for you, too.
Giant Super Bowl. Give me one memory.
It's not real hard. Wide right.
Redskins Super Bowl.
Redskins were a dominant team.
Dallas Super Bowl.
9 turnovers and a bum knee.
Dallas Super Bowl, second time around.
Bills finally do it. One thing about the Cowboys, you got to keep them off balance. You can't just run, pass, run, pass. You have to pass, run, pass, run, or run. Just keep them off balance. Keep them guessing.
Jim, if you win this Super Bowl, is it all forgotten?
In our minds, no. But it definitely will help relieve some of the tension and some of the focus on those 3 losses. But if we lose, hey, we're not expected to win. We weren't even supposed to be here, but we're here.
Elation or relief if you win this game?
A little bit of both. Probably a little bit more relief than anything.
Yeah, a little bit of elation and explosion, too, if I know those guys. Kelly's always been a bombs-away quarterback, from his USFL days to the Bills' emergence as the only AFC champion in the 90s. But that Buffalo offense, which roared into the Super Bowl against the Giants 3 years ago, is not the same now. It's not a 40-yard passing game anymore. It's more like often 15. Through last season, when James Lofton was just a shadow of his former self, through half of this year when he was gone, I think the Bills and Jim have been in a little bit of denial. But now they understand. It's Andre Reed across the middle. It's Pete Metzelaars as leading receiver at tight end. It's patient and shorter routes. And Kelly certainly has adjusted. And Joe, I think his adjustment is why And the guy's played 13 playoff games, but for the first time ever, he's put together back-to-back postseason games without an interception. He grasped it now, and it shows.
You know, Chris, it's not just grasping what he shows. I think it's also a case of maturity for Jim Kelly. He knows exactly what he wants to do with the football. He's also getting some help by moving Andre Reed around. He's your best receiver. He's your most productive guy. So now why don't you put him outside? Look at how Jim knows exactly where he wants to go with the football. Look at the throw. It's absolutely perfect. Great release by Andre up the field. Now watch that ball come in. Right over the outside shoulder, just like everybody teaches you, just like everybody tells the quarterback. If you're going to throw the ball down the field, keep it away from the defender, let the sideline be your friend, drop it over the outside. If he can do that with time, Tommy, he's going to be unbeatable.
And I think the interesting thing about that piece of analysis tape, Joe, ball thrown to the left side, I think that leads us right back to the offensive line. John Fina has been a great asset for this ball club. Everybody has been looking at the matchup between John Fina and Charles Haley. Well, let's remember that the Cowboys moved Haley around last year. That fiasco in the second quarter by the Buffalo Bills at their own 1-yard line. Haley coming over House Ballard.
Well, Jim and the line certainly remember that, and how they handle giving Jim time, obviously, and how Thurman runs, one of the keys, two of the keys to the game. We got a full keychain, don't we? We've got plenty to come on this edition of the Super Bowl Sunday NFL Game Day. Jimmy and Jerry, the agonizing story of playing with pain. That's coming up next when we return. Players do it. They do it because they have to. Doesn't mean they do it because they like to. Stay with us.
Somewhere, I felt like I might not even showed up.
They start in mid-July with two-a-days, play a preseason schedule, 18 regular season games, and if they're lucky, 2 or 3 more playoff games, and finally arrive at the Super Bowl the last couple of days in January. In short, they are true warriors. Surviving the season is almost as impressive as winning a Super Bowl. Oh, sure, the injury reports may list the players as probable or maybe not mention them at all, but every one of them is hurting. Just as it's been a season-long process for the players, it's been the same for us. Let's rejoin Andrea Kramer at the Georgia Dome to explain.
Chris, officially, 8 players are listed on the injury report for both teams. But look at the Bills. At least 6 guys have sprains, including Ken Hull's ankle. 2 have pulls. 4 have contusions of the elbow, the knee, and then there's Jim Kelly's hip. As for the Cowboys, remember Troy Aikman had a concussion last week. Ken Norton Jr. has been playing with a torn bicep since October 31st, which he estimates at only 40% efficiency. And of course, everyone remembers Emmitt Smith, who almost single-handedly beat the Giants while playing with a grade 1 separated shoulder. This week, I asked these men how they continue to play with pain.
Injuries are a part of the game, and the ultimate thing in football is to win a Super Bowl. You play with pain throughout the whole season to get to this point, and it's going to have to be pretty drastic in order to keep you out.
Just being here, just intensify just about everything, and basically with the intense come motivation and all that stuff, and mental blockage, and makes it easier to disregard something.
This is the reason why I stayed, and I don't think my arm will hold me back one bit. I think that if anything, I'm going to make it feel a lot better today.
To put this in perspective, if a layperson injures his foot, he could be on crutches for 4 weeks. If a football player does it, he could be on the sidelines for 4 minutes. Players told me, unless you've experienced it, it's almost impossible to comprehend what playing with pain really means, what drives a person to do it. But when you enter the psyche of an NFL player, you begin to understand the power and inspiration of playing with pain. What's the stupidest thing you ever did to get on the field?
Probably going in and starting the second half when I hurt my kidney. What was happening was blood was filling up, squeezing off my lungs, and I couldn't breathe. Had I stayed out there, I might have died. Who knows?
You have to realize, I mean, everything that's worth attaining, you have to sacrifice for, and pain is that sacrifice.
The only thing you can do is ice and heat to try to get the swelling down. Take anti-inflammatories to try to get the swelling down. And then take painkillers on Sunday that you still have pain, but you have to be able to, for 3 seconds or 4 seconds, to be able to go from point A to point B without the pain affecting you.
I think pain is a lot of it is, it's in your mind. I mean, you can control a lot of what you're feeling through your mind, and I think it, you know, if you want to play badly enough, it's not going to hurt as bad.
I turned down offers of x-rays because I don't want to know. I don't care. I'm going to play anyway, so why no?
A torn bicep prevents Ken Norton Jr. from picking up a glass, but it didn't prevent him from making his first Pro Bowl this year. Despite constant pain, he resolved to make it enhance, not detract from his performance.
And it's detached from here on down to here. And when they go in and have the surgery, they're going to have to put this back in there. In a way, it's kind of made my game better in that anytime you go out and you feel that you're not 100%, you always try to work a little bit harder to overcompensate for whatever your injury is. You just get out there and fly around, and you worry about the bumps and bruises, you know, come the next morning.
Monday mornings, I feel like you've seen The Wizard of Oz. I feel like the Tin Man without the oil. He doesn't realize what I went through last night. He doesn't understand. He thinks football to him is getting the ball and running around the house and having daddy tackle him. You know, he doesn't realize football to me is 60 car wrecks in 3 hours.
The sight, sound, and smell of pain permeate the game. And in the National Football League, one of the worst labels is he won't play with pain. Pressure to play may come from coaches or peers or from within, the fear of losing your job. The pressure may be subtle or as hard-hitting as a blindside blitz.
If you're not hurting from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet, you must be the ultimate backup.
Guys on our team, for instance, have gotten hurt, and another player will come up and say, hey, look, you know, is that all it is? The pressure kind of builds at that point, because now the player is feeling, well, gee, you know, people are starting to question my integrity or my heart.
What they don't want to do is get into a group of people that the other players look at as being sissies.
Those guys are the guys you put in the pen. You pencil that into the back end of the book, and the first time you get a chance to get rid of them, you get rid of them.
Hey, if I don't get out on the field and perform, I'm not going to be around. I'm going to lose my job. I think job security is definitely a big part of it.
What we used to do in Washington, we used to cross-check the players. Like as the offensive line coach, I'd talk to the defensive lineman, and Torgy was the defense, he'd talk to the offense, and I'd go in and say, hey, what's wrong with you today, Charles? You got a hang now?
I remember when Joe Bugle was here, I always felt like when I was injured or when I was hurt and I couldn't practice, not play, because I'd always end up playing in the game, but if I couldn't practice, he tended to avoid me.
When you ignore somebody or don't buddy up to them, they know something's wrong. Something wrong that time, he wasn't on the field.
There's an unwritten code that says players are expected to play with pain. Barry Foster defied that code. After he sprained his ankle, he elected to have surgery against the Steelers' wishes and was lost for the season. He made the choice not to play, and questions arose about his commitment.
I don't think you get into evaluating players with how much pain they can withstand. As long as you're performing, they don't care if you're hurting or not. But if you can't perform, they want to know if you can endure the pain. If you can't, you're going to be labeled as a guy who can't play with the pain. Before I announced that I was going to have surgery, I could see in some guys' eyes that they were still doubting me because they would ask me questions. Dang, man, you still hurt? You know, I'm not going to go through all this pain just to make the organization happy. I feel like I don't have to.
Barry Foster's choice was courageous. So was Emmitt Smith's.
At any point, was there a temptation just to sit?
Just to sit? Yes. Yes, it was.
So what stopped you?
I wanted to get back out there and win the game.
And no amount of pain was going to stop you?
Not the pain I was going through anyway. It wasn't broke. As long as I knew it wasn't broke, I was going to go.
You really put the team before your personal health.
Yes, I did. Pain is not the most important thing. I think, I mean, when after the game, Mike Irvin came in and hugged my neck, cried on my shoulder with me while I was in pain. That was emotional. It really was. It really was. Yep.
Emmett described how during the game, both the Giants and Cowboys players were helping him up after each play, how his teammates were constantly saying to him, "Are you okay?" But when the adrenaline stopped and the emotion ended, the teasing began on the plane ride home. As for Emmett's condition this week, he said it's the most mobility he's had in the shoulder since he injured it. I asked him what he's going to wear. He said, same thing I've been wearing past couple of weeks, just my shoulder pads. Chris, back to you.
All right, Andrew, thank you very much. A great job. You know, sometimes all of us who are fans that didn't play the game like you guys take the guys out there on the field for granted. I think there's a big-time reminder that we appreciate what they're doing out there. Except for you two guys. Well, do you feel, honestly, I mean, there's a rap that the current players don't do the same things. They don't play with as much pain as the old-timers did. Do you think that's true, Tom?
No, I don't, Chris. I think that great players in any era tend to play with pain and maybe even play injured. They don't do it for the coaching staff. They don't do it for the money, the fans, the media. They do it for themselves and their teammates, and it comes from within. Now, fortunately, today we have a lot of great players on this field who will be willing to do almost anything to win today's game.
You know, Tommy, it's interesting when I thought about pain. When I used to go to training camp, the first day I arrived, my mindset was that from now on, I am going to wake up and I am going to be hurting. For the next 6 months of my life, I'm going to be hurting, I'm going to be in pain. But there was a big motivational factor in playing with pain for me. I always thought about the guy that wanted my job. If I was in competition with another quarterback and I thought, if I got hurt and he got out on the field and he could show the coach that he could perform, I may not be able to get my job back. Therefore, I would play through anything to be able to stay on that football field and make sure that the other guy never had a chance to show what he could do to the coach. And that's how I got my job, Chris. Really, a guy got hurt. I got a chance to show my stuff, and that's how I got mine. I never wanted that to happen to me.
You're saying that, Joe. Now I understand why Chris Myers asked me every week, is your voice all right? You're be able to make it? Now I understand what he's talking about. Only kidding. Still to come, a guy who has played with and dishes out pain, Moose Johnston. Bill's special teammate Steve Tasker, and next, the Jimmy and Jerry Alliance. They built this city. They built this city on rock and roll. But do they understand each other anymore?
I think I understand him as well as I'll ever understand him.
Do you understand Jimmy Johnson?
Well, I understand all I need to understand, and all that I really care to understand.
Jerry and Jimmy. They came into this thing 6 years ago looking like country rubes. Well, the joke has long been on everybody else, hadn't it been? Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones. They've built an impeccable organization for the Dallas Cowboys on the principles that Jerry explained to us as peak on peak. Never be satisfied with being good or be satisfied with being great. Keep building on greatness if that's what you have. They both understand it because they've been together since their college days. But more, I mean, you've detailed it since the beginning of the year. Everything has not been hunky-dory for the two of them at the start of the season. Has it deteriorated? Has it got better? What's the relationship like now?
Well, I think, Chris, some people were actually disappointed to learn that the bosom buddy image of Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones was a bit of a myth. Now, one thing that is not a myth is that Jerry Jones is the owner, Jimmy Johnson is the coach of arguably the best football team in America. And in 1993, they found a way to make it work again. Naturally, though, with a few bumps on the road to the Super Bowl.
How about those Cowboys? How about them Cowboys?
Who's most responsible for the Dallas Cowboys being in their second straight Super Bowl? Is it Jerry Jones or Jimmy Johnson?
Oh, I can answer that without a blank. I think Jimmy Johnson. Whatever credit they want to give him, I'll add that much more on top of it. I'd like to think that me adding a little on top of it gives me a little something to do with it, too.
At times, he wants recognition as a football man, and because the recognition that he receives as a businessman probably is not as important to him.
Do you think Jimmy has given you enough credit for where this team is today?
I really don't have to think about that because there is someone that can just turn the lights out, just flip them off or flip them on. And we all know in any world, that's who owns the team.
Jimmy and Jerry, Jerry and Jimmy. Like parallel lines, apart yet together.
Tell me if you understand, truly understand Jerry Jones.
I think I understand him as well as I'll ever understand him.
Do you understand Jimmy Johnson?
Well, I understand all I need to understand, and all that I really care to understand.
We understand that both of us are driven and very egotistical.
Do you enjoy Jerry?
Yeah, at times, you know, I enjoy Jerry. At times, yeah, he's irritating, but I'm sure there are many times that I'm irritating to Jerry.
From the standpoint of Jimmy and me, we've never had a better year.
I actually think the relationship is better now than what it was 2 or 3 years ago. In fact, I think this is probably the best year that we've had.
Emmitt Smith's early season absence defined the relationship. Jimmy ruled between the lines. Jerry governed the bottom line.
He's got to do what he's got to do. You know, it's his club and his money, and he's got to make those decisions.
Acquiring Bernie Kosar showcased the relationship at its best. Working together, acting swiftly and decisively, they filled a team need.
What we've got here is a we thing, not just a Jimmy thing, not just a Jerry thing. We have a we thing.
But there still were glimmers of the relationship at its worst. Week 18, Jimmy Johnson says he's interested in running the new Jacksonville team, and it escalates into ego-clashing, one-upsmanship over who really runs the Cowboys.
I sat in a chair, asked you about Jacksonville a couple of weeks ago.
You stirred up a lot of stuff.
You stirred up a lot of stuff.
We're talking about Jimmy Jaguar now.
So if somebody at Jacksonville or somebody came to you and wanted to talk to your coach, would you allow them to talk to your coach?
No.
Do you think it can really sustain the remainder of this contract? Do you really think it's going to work for 5 more years?
I don't know.
And do you think Jerry will name himself coach of the team when you do leave?
I don't know that either.
The facts are that when they put me in the ground, my coaching record's going to be 0-0. I do own the team. If I wanted to, I could try to coach it.
Do you think he really thinks he can coach this team?
I know he laughs about it, but sometimes I wonder.
Do you think he could?
No.
How about those Cowboys? How about them Cowboys?
Now, Jerry Jones, I think he's so out front that sometimes we don't give him enough credit for being one of the best owners in professional sports. You know, what he does as an owner really permeates down to the field. He's a risk taker. Jimmy Johnson, it allows him to be himself, which allows Norv Turner to make an unorthodox call late in the game. So, Chris, I really think the whole thing has worked. Jimmy and Jerry, they're in the Super Bowl again.
Definitely. You know they're confident because every time they see you coming, they know you're stirring it, right?
That's right.
Then they say, come on in, Mort, stir it up again. We like it. Good job. Still to come, the chalkboard, keys to the game, and plenty more, including Thurman Thomas, Buffalo's biggest key to victory. He'll visit with Tommy and tell us if he should be a member of the Moody Blues. What do you think?
People have written about me over the past about being angry all the time, being moody and things like that. Sure, I'm like that sometimes, but not all the time.
Quicken Rally is one of the largest.
5 years ago to the other side of the ball, the Colts, who lost Super Bowl III. Moose Johnston, a Tisker, a Tasker. Plenty coming up on our 90-minute game day. Stay with us.
Hello, this is Dennis Hirsch from Hirsch Sports.
Hyatt in downtown. Oh, Atlanta. Whose little feet will have one leg up at the end of the day? Emmitt Smith, he of the 3 straight rushing titles, or Thurman Thomas, he of the 4 straight total yards from scrimmage crowns, a run ended this season by Emmitt. Last week in the championship games, Emmitt totaled 173 yards, Thurman 208. But while Emmitt, through his holdout and his playing with pain performance this season, certainly let us know exactly where he stands, Thermal sometimes may be different. He appears occasionally to be surly, moody, to have a chip on his shoulder. Had the Bills won Super Bowl 25, no question, he would have been the MVP. But he disappeared in the last 2 Super Bowls. And Tommy, to quote or kind of steal a quote from Eric Burden and the Animals, he's just a man whose intentions are good, but Lord, sometimes I guess he's misunderstood.
Yeah, and maybe nobody looking more forward to today's Super Bowl than Thurman Thomas. His career reads like a Hall of Fame resume. He's led the league in total yards from scrimmage 4 out of the last 5 years. He's the only player in NFL history to attain that feat. and yet to some he's still mysterious and to most misunderstood. Everybody wants to define Thurman Thomas's personality. Do it for me.
We got a lot of tape on that film.
What things make you angry? Are you angry?
When have I talked about myself?
I thought the first year you talked about yourself much.
When?
Here, down here at the Super Bowl.
When? The first Super Bowl?
Yeah.
When? What did I say? You can't even remember, can you?
Yeah, when?
You can't even remember. If you can't remember, don't say it then. If you can't remember, shut the hell up. Don't ask me no stupid question like that.
Are you angry?
At that, because he was trying to get something out of me that 3 years ago I couldn't even remember, and he's the one that supposedly heard it and wrote the story, and he couldn't even remember. People have written about me over the past about being angry all the time, being moody and things like that. Sure, I'm like that sometimes, but not all the time.
Do you have fond memories of the Super Bowls past?
Yeah, I do. Super Bowl 25, I had a pretty good game.
26.
As a little kid, you want to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and I scored one there. Memories of Super Bowl 26 wasn't good. A lot of those sports writers are going to judge me if you remember Thurman Thomas, how would you remember him? And if they say something about the helmet issue, then it's like my career was a whole downfall. That was probably the most embarrassing time of my career since I've been playing football. I was humiliated in front of a lot of people.
Does one Super Bowl erase the 3 losses?
I think it does. It definitely has to. A sense of urgency won't be until if we go 0-3. You know, then it's time to sit down and think, will we ever get back there? Will this team break up?
You lost the 3rd Super Bowl. Is there a sense of urgency now?
I think it is. These guys are getting old, and a lot of teams are catching up to what we've been doing over the past 3 or 4 years.
Is the legacy of this ball club at stake on Sunday?
Yeah, if we lose, and yeah, if we win.
It's Sunday night. The Bills have lost. Can you imagine how you feel?
I would feel down, but it won't stay with me for a long time.
Are you tortured by this? Not me. Some of the other players might be. Not me. Are embarrassed? No, I'm not embarrassed. Not at all.
Thurman Thomas had 208 yards rushing and receiving against the Kansas City Chiefs in the championship game. I think his numbers have to be similar to that today for the Bills to have a chance to win.
Tommy, Thurman does things that a lot of backs don't do. He has tremendous versatility, but he also knows how to set up his offensive linemen. He knows how to run with the football. What he does is he takes the ball and he examines it very closely. He has to see where he has to go. For example, here's a counter tray. You see Fina and Parker come around. Now notice how he stops. It looks like he's going to go outside, but no, he has the option inside. So he helps the block out by sliding outside just a little bit, then cutting up underneath. That is indicative of the great backs, the backs that can work with their linemen. So it isn't always just the individual effort of the back, but it's a combination of him helping his linemen out more.
Well, Joe, I think if the Bills win the day, it's going to be because Thurman Thomas can run between the tackles, and he's got a much bulkier offensive line than he did a year ago. Glenn Parker's 32 pounds heavier than Jim Richer at left guard. John Davis is in there at right guard at 300 pounds, and they got a guy named House playing right tackle. So if Thurman runs between the tackles, they'll win. It's a big day for Leon Lett, Russell Maryland, Tony Casillas, Ken Norton on the Cowboys day, Chris.
Put it in perspective more. Thurman Thomas, 7,600 yards rushing in his 6 years in the NFL. Leroy Kelly, yesterday elected to the Hall of Fame, 7,200 yards rushing.
Not too shabby.
That kind of ties it up a little bit, doesn't it? Plenty to come. Keys to the game and a look back 25 years ago. Joe Willie and the New York Jets pulled off their guarantee, and the Colts were left in the dust. It's a feeling that some of them still can't escape.
If I lie awake nights and agonize over who won the Super Bowl 25 years ago, that's ridiculous. But it happens.
25 years ago, the Super Bowl seemed like a formality. The NFL and AFL had merged. They had a common draft. But in 1968, the leagues were still playing separately, and the Super Bowl was viewed certainly by the NFL as an afterthought. I mean, after all, Vince Lombardi's Packers had sat on the Chiefs and the Raiders in the first 2 Super Bowls, and the mighty Baltimore Colts were certainly about to do the same thing to the upstart New York Jets. But Joe Namath and company would have none of it, even though the odds makers made them a 17-point underdog, larger than either Kansas City or Oakland had been in the 2 previous years. But in Miami several days before the game at the Orange Bowl, Willie White Shoes guaranteed a victory. What happened on January 12, 1969 changed the face of pro football forever. But what about the other side? We've all lionized the Jets, but what about the Baltimore Colts? They had legends on their team too, like Johnny U and a soon-to-be legend Don Shula, just to get started. They were the team that let down an entire league.
The only chance we had to show we could beat them in the big show was at the big show, the Super Bowl.
We had a dynasty at that particular time as far as I was concerned.
Let's go, ram it in, let's go! He's in there! I just dove over. It was the biggest hole you ever seen.
We thought that that was indicative of what was happening right then at the time, because no one had ever lost to anybody in the AFL, so we sort of thought this was almost like a world champion game for us.
We didn't think the Jet could stand up to it.
They only had one player that we thought was a pro player, and I mean that. We didn't think any of their starters could even make the Colt roster.
For the life of me, I can't recall any loss of intensity or aggressiveness on the practice field. I remember Shula distinctly stopping practice and saying, man, we're just smashing each other out here. We were practicing well. We practiced hard. I think that's been one of the great mysteries for us, because we knew we had an outstanding team. Why we didn't play that way?
The team brought all the families down, all the children and the wives, for the whole week prior to the game.
And I recall that one of our players had to stay up all night with a sick wife. Those things just happen with families. And I mean, heck, you have to do that. You couldn't say, well, move him to another room and let her be sick.
It was too much of a carnival atmosphere.
People don't think, they really don't think that we had a lot of respect for the Jets.
They just weren't big enough. They weren't fast enough. They just really didn't have any first-rate performers.
I knew they played good football, and there wasn't any perceptual difference that I could see.
You can say anything that's, you know, like stunned, disappointed,
horror. Numbness, just couldn't believe this was happening.
We would play them later and hammer the shit out of them.
You get one chance to win the big game, to make the big play, and either you do or you don't.
That was the worst of all things that stand out. None of the victories stand out as much as the loss of the Jets.
Super Bowl III is something that we have to live with all our lives.
If I lie awake nights and agonize over who won the Super Bowl 25 years ago, that's ridiculous. But it happens.
I would give anything to have 25 years back.
We live with it.
The game should have been a rout, and I say that to this day.
If you want to be remembered as one of the greatest, you better win the big one, because it almost doesn't matter what else you did.
Well, the good news for those Baltimore Colts is that many of them were still there when 2 years later they beat the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl V. But there's no question that the win by the Jets 25 years ago at the Orange Bowl legitimized the entire merger. It legitimized the AFL, and the Kansas City Chiefs drove it home with a hammer the next year when they hammered the Minnesota Vikings. And as for Joe Namath, that's why some of us grew our hair long, some of us wore white shoes every day to school, and some of us felt we could go out with 3 women at one time. Still to come on this edition of NFL Game Day, we will visit with Steve Tasker, a great member of the Bills special teams, Moose Johnston, the Pro Bowl fullback of the Dallas Cowboys, and yes, we're partying as the party and the show roar on from Hotlanta. And we're so glad you could join us here on Super Bowl Sunday. For the first time in the Pro Bowl, each conference has a designated fullback, and the NFC's choice was easy. Dallas's Daryl Moose Johnston. Oddly enough, Moose grew up in Youngstown, New York, a suburb of Buffalo. He learned at a young age what Jim Braxton in the backfield meant for O.J. Simpson. Mort, now he gets to show off what he learned from those days.
Oh, that's right, Chris. You know that when Troy Aikman was the #1 pick in 1989, the Cowboys made Daryl Johnston a second-round pick from Syracuse, and everybody want to know, who is this guy? Well, as we've learned, he's no longer Daryl Johnston, or DJ as his friends used to call him. He's now officially Moose. When is a moose not a moose? When you're Daryl Johnston, 245-pound fullback for the Dallas Cowboys, who got his nickname from a former teammate.
He walked in and we had all these little backs at that time, all guys about 5'9" and 180 pounds, and Daryl was in the back of the group, and he just looked like a moose among the deer. So I kind of just jokingly said, "Hey, moose," and they kind of caught on.
Last year, Troy took it to John Madden, and in the championship game, he got a big kick out of it, and that's what really got everything going.
Even in the most hostile territories, there is one popular call.
Moose.
We walked on the field in New York, and there was this big loud, you thought it was booing, and I thought the rest of our team was coming in and turning around, and Daryl was walking on the field, and the New York fans, or our fans in New York, are yelling, "Moose."
Moose, moose.
The Moose call has even cost star running back Emmitt Smith a few visits to the end zone.
It was actually kind of hard to hear the cadence down on the goal line, and then he was kidding me about it. He goes, "This has got to stop." He goes, "They're even expecting you to get the ball down here."
And everybody started hollering, "Moose, moose, moose." I'd be like, "Moose, they calling you. You better go ahead and give them what they want."
Arguably, Johnston has become the NFL's best traditional fullback, a first-time Pro Bowl selection who sacrifices his body for the good of the team.
It's the hardest white boy in the world. We call him a hard white boy. Boy will hit anything. Moose.
Daryl's such a unique guy because there aren't many guys that are willing to take the physical pounding he takes. Usually when Emmitt has a good run, it's because Daryl's had a heck of a block.
As a fullback, Daryl Johnson, he does a tremendous job at taking care of Emmitt Smith.
In my opinion, he's every bit as important to our offense as what Emmitt is, or Michael is, or Jay, or any number of players. And he's a guy who just recently is beginning to get the recognition that he's deserved over the last 5 seasons.
Moose.
It is easy to recognize the star on their helmets, but the star of stars on the Dallas Cowboys just might be, well, ask them.
I think it's Daryl Johnston. Moose. You got to say the Moose. He's a great player.
Moose.
Johnson is critical today, along with tight end Jay Novacek. They're going to have to help out Mark Tuanay on Bruce Smith. No matter where Bruce shows up, I think Bruce will meet Moose today, Joe.
You know, Mark, great piece, by the way. I really feel like with Daryl Johnson, not just blocking for Emmitt Smith, he adds an awful lot of versatility to this offense. He's a very key receiver for Troy Aikman. For example, Troy looks down the field, wants to go to Alvin Harper, but no, out there in the right flat is M-O-O-S-E, Moose. Now he dumps it off, catches the ball, does exactly what he should do. Turns it upfield, turns his shoulders upfield just like he does on a block, winds up with an 8-yard gain, so it's 2nd down and 2. How much more perfect can you have as a quarterback?
That is perfect. And, you know, we talk about a Pro Bowler that you wouldn't think normally of a fullback to go to a Pro Bowl. Special teams. Now, they don't call Steve Tasker Moose. He's not nearly that big. But maybe he is that big on the field.
Well, he's certainly that big for Marv Levy. You know, all coaches preach the importance of the kicking game, but you have the feeling that most players still think of it as apprenticeship for a starting job on offense or defense. Not the case with Steve Tasker. He's made special teams something special.
He's listed at 5'9" and a generous 181 pounds. He doesn't start on offense or defense, and he's caught only 10 passes in 9 years as a backup wide receiver. But the mere mention of his name gains a nod of recognition from his teammates.
Talk to me about Steve and what he means to this ball club. Steve Tasker. Steve Tasker.
He's just unbelievable.
I think Steve's a different breed of cat. Special team extraordinaire.
He's a special little short, small, fast white guy.
Need more proof that this is not your average second-teamer? Steve Tasker has made a name for himself like no other special teams player in history, redefining his position and playing a role of unprecedented importance on his team.
When I think of Steve Tasker, I think of the Hall of Fame, because if there's anybody deserves to go, he does. It's kind of funny, you can see a player, maybe a star player, get nicked or something, but when Steve Tasker gets nicked, everybody's like, is he all right, is he all right, is he all right?
There's no question about it. The special teams is a very big momentum grabber and a very big spark for it, but the spark, I think, should come from a big play or something that happens on the field. It's not rah-rah in the locker room. It's going out on the field and getting something done that the guys can grab onto and say, man, let's get it done, and that was a great play, and the speed off of it.
An example of just that took place 2 weeks ago against the Raiders.
We played the Raiders about 6 weeks before this, and when Jeff Jaeger went to kick off the opening kickoff, he slipped and fell and line drive the kickoff right past me. So from then on, every game I've been prepared for that, and he came by, and line drive a shot right at me, and I took off, and it happened so fast. I was going the other way before the Raiders even knew I had the ball.
The only person who caught him was Willie Goat, who's a world-class spreader now. That's saying a little something for the guy. I mean, he's been to the Pro Bowl. He's won the MVP of the Pro Bowl. I mean, you can watch him go out there on the field, and it doesn't look like he's going to do anything. You say, what's this little guy going to do? This little guy can't do nothing. Next thing you know, he's around you, he's blocked a kick, or either he's done knocked somebody down, and you stand there looking, God, what did he hit him with, a bat?
Special teamers aren't supposed to be helping you win football games. They're supposed to prevent making mistakes that lose football games.
Tom, you're on a subject close to my heart. I came into the National Football League as a special teams coach. And Steve Tasker, very probably, is the best special teams player that's ever played in the National Football League. At least that's my opinion based on background.
No, I never consider myself the best. You know, I haven't seen enough guys. I mean, there are guys in the league now that I wish they were on my team too. You know? And we've helped to bring it into the forefront and done some things that can say, hey, these guys really can contribute, even though they're on the field only like 20% of the time. They can really make something happen. And I think I'm most proud of that.
That piece on Steve Tasker provided a glimpse of how important the special teams can be. And today, in the Super Bowl, at some point in that game, the kicking game is going to come into play and dictate who's going to win or lose.
No doubt about it, and that's where Buffalo, one of the areas that they got to have a plus. Turnovers and kicking game. They know that it can't be even up. Tasker's a guy that can help them do that. We've got plenty more. We've got some X's and O's, some extra points, and the party raging on here. We're about 5 hours to kick off. Richard Dent, a lot of the players at the world's largest Super Bowl party. So is our Chris Myers. We'll check in with Chris in just a minute.
All right, thanks, Chris. We're just a few blocks away from the Georgia Dome, and I know that you've been too busy all week to party, but the Super Bowl has parties built around it. While many across the country are working on their own parties in their own homes, this is the 4th day of the world's largest Super Bowl party, which goes right through the game. Now, more than 300 players have been here throughout the 4 days, and as the game draws closer, fans have a chance to get closer to those players. There'll be an autograph and photo session here later in the day. We spoke to a few players and former players at a charity brunch moments ago.
I was not in the state of Georgia. I may not even shown up. I'm sort of like a sore loser. If I'm not in it, I don't want to be here. But it is fun to see a lot of the players. You know, you play against those guys, you beat up on each other, and it's good to get them out of the past so you can at least shake their hands and not be mean to them.
I really don't have a pick. It really doesn't matter to me who wins. I'm here enjoying the game like most people do.
What are your thoughts on the Bills' psychological approach to this game, having gone 0 for 3 in the last Super Bowls?
Well, I like what they've been saying so far. It's like, no one wants us here. We're here. You better learn to like it, America. And I also pull for them because they're from the AFC. I played my whole career in the AFC. The last team to ever win a Super Bowl was the Raiders. So I want to see the Bills pull this one off.
The Cowboys are like animals. You know, if you have a little cut, they see it in the blood, they're going to take over. So you got to stop the bleeding real quick.
Next year, Dan Marino's team will be the host city, and this party has been such a success that they're going to have the same thing in Miami, and they're talking about putting it together in Phoenix as well. There'll be a pep rally. Fans can actually watch the game on large screen TVs with players and get their comments as they're watching the game. And also, if you don't have a Super Bowl ticket yet, from now until just before kickoff, they're going to be having drawings and giving away Super Bowl tickets for the Cowboys and for the Bills. Chris, we'll see you at the game. From the world's largest Super Bowl party, I'm Chris Myers. Back to you.
Oh, that reveler, Mr. Myers. When we return, yeah, last-minute adjustments on the turf. That's right, you got to change the turf just a little bit. It's cushy, but how cushy? They're going to make sure it's exactly right. We'll be back. All week, proving this, disproving that. As somebody once said, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. But here's a number that, I mean, it's an overwhelming trend. Dallas 0-1 in the Georgia Dome this season, having lost to the Atlanta Falcons 27-14 in Week 12. I mean, how can they rebound from such overwhelming numbers like that? 0-1. So there's one thing the Bills have going for them, Tom. What else must they have going for them today to win it?
Well, I think first and foremost for the Buffalo Bills, it begins with controlling the Dallas Cowboy running game, and that means controlling Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith can kill you, and he keeps everything that the Cowboys like to do offensively. Here you see him lined up 6 yards deep, comes through the line of scrimmage, makes the nice move on the backer, gets going down the football field. He has that ability to make the first, second guy miss and get down the field, getting you all the extra yards. In the first quarter of last year's Super Bowl, Buffalo Bills do a good job of not letting him get his shoulders turned upfield, making sure that he was running lateral and parallel to the line of scrimmage. They had some success. They have to do that again today, leading us to the Bills' keys to victory. Notice I didn't say stop Emmitt Smith. You have to slow him down. That's the first key, first and foremost. Slow Emmitt Smith down. Second key, Thurman Thomas, success running inside the tackles, because he will not be able to beat the Dallas Cowboys to the corner. And then third and foremost, you cannot fall behind the Dallas Cowboys. Jimmy Johnson and that team with great killer instinct.
Yes, they do, Tom. They really do. But, you know, and the thing about killer instinct, what helps killer instinct is blitzes. And that's what the Dallas Cowboys want to use sparingly in this game. They want to pick their spots. For example, here comes Kenneth Gant in last year's Super Bowl. Kelly goes back to pass. Here he comes swinging around, gives Kelly a shot. Washington with the interception that sets and turns the tide for the Cowboys when they were down 7-0. Now it's Ken Norton's turn. He comes inside. This is what puts Kelly out of the game. You see Kenneth Davis try and make the block. He winds up hitting Kelly. Kelly goes out of the game. The blitzes are something that the Cowboys want to use, but they don't want to use them too quickly. Therefore, the next thing you have to do is you have to stop Thurman Thomas. Obviously, he's going to be a big key. One other thing you may not be aware of is the substitution of a defensive back for a linebacker. Because of the three wide receiver setup of the Buffalo Bills, the Cowboys will start with 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 DBs. They don't want to take one of those linebackers out of there too quick and go with 6 DBs because they want to keep them on the field to stop the run.
I tell you what, they go with, I think they go with 15 players on defense, personally, myself. I can't believe, and we've been joking with Jimmy Johnson about this, that they weren't flagged against San Francisco. I swear, there were 15 guys on defense on every play. Tommy, have you ever seen a team this fast? And what do you can't out-coach certain aspects of the speed when there's always 3 or 4 hats on every Buffalo Bill. They've got to really stay in tune mentally. They know they're going to get drilled from several sides.
Well, I think certainly you have to key into the things that are successful for you. Last week, the Buffalo Bills were able to run that ball in between the tackles on the Kansas City Chiefs. You waste plays when you go outside on the Dallas Cowboys. They have 4 or 5 people at the point of attack. I think today you're going to see a tremendous job of that. Counter Trey, Thurman Thomas inside, trying to make yourself small and squeeze through a hole.
Those quick plays, the quick offensive plays, the shorter passing game we were talking about, except for the counter Trey, the misdirection, Dallas is there before you can get your blockers there. Don't look for a lot of that for the Buffalo Bills. When we return, some extra points. Yes, we've got more to dissect. The Cowboys and the Bills as we return to Atlanta in just a moment.
This Super Bowl edition of NFL Game Day has been brought to you by Citibank Visa. Now with your photo and signature on the front for greater security. Not just Visa, Citibank Visa.
Don't forget, after it's all over, a special Sports Center edition of Prime Time. At 11 o'clock Eastern Time, interviews from the ballpark and plenty more dissection. And if somebody does happen to miss the game, we'll be nice enough to show you the highlights. As we get into the game, guys, what extra points do you have?
Well, the Dallas Cowboys feel that the Buffalo Bills bring the blitz from the same side that Bruce Smith lines up on to assure single blocking on Bruce. Look for them to hit Michael Irvin in those situations.
The Dallas Cowboys know that the Buffalo Bills play a double zone defense. There I am over here moving quickly like the Cowboys. What happens is look for the Cowboys to throw inside early to Jay Novacek, Johnson, and Smith. Try and force the Bills out of that double zone to get the ball outside to Irvin and Harper.
I'm looking for the Buffalo Bills to give the Dallas Cowboys defense a test early with the no-huddle offense to see how they react.
Buffalo's got to force Dallas into a couple of turnovers in the first half, see how they react. I don't know that they will be scared, but they have to see if perhaps they are if they turn them into points. Predictions, guys. That moment it's through.
24-21 Bills.
24-23 Bills.
Oh, hey, Leon, that's going to have a super game today again. He's not going to fumble. Cowboys, 59-17. Okay, 38-20.
It's another 35-point game. What did the Swami say? Buffalo 38, Dallas 3. If I'm right, I'm a genius. If I'm wrong, I'm funny. Hey, have a great game. I'm sure it's going to be a good one. For Joe and Tom and Mort and all of us, I'm Chris Berman. Thanks for watching.